الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيبي وحبيب إله العالمين أبا القاسم محمد محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم تنزيله: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام را تلك آيات الكتاب المبين إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون. نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين. إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. First, I would like to remind myself and every one of us about the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let each and every one of us remember that everything that we do, there is someone watching over us. And He stated in the Quran, in Surah Al-Alaq, أَفَلَا يَعْلَمُ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَرَى. Doesn't He, human being, knows that Allah sees? If we can keep this in mind, that everywhere that I find myself in, wherever I am in, somebody is watching. Not only that, keep in mind that not only He's watching, He will bring it to your attention Yawm al-Qiyamah as well. And He stated in the Quran in Surah Luqman, where Prophet Luqman was telling his son, he said, يَا بُنَيَّ إِن تَقُ مِثْقَالَ حَبَّةٍ مِّن خَرْدَلٍ فَتَكُنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ أَوْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَأْتِ بِهَا اللَّهُ. See, my son, don't worry about what you do. Don't worry about the place, but keep one thing in mind, that whatever you do, whatever it is, He will bring it to your attention. That is what to keep in mind. If it's good, He will bring it to your attention. If it's bad, He will bring it to your attention. And He said the same thing also in another surah. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا. When we are able to keep this in mind, that somebody is watching, and not only is watching, He will bring my action to mind, to me, Yawm al-Qiyamah. Whether it's good or bad, I will see it. That is called Taqwa Allah. You feel the presence of Allah in every movement of yours. That is Taqwa. May Allah help us to develop this Taqwa. My dear brothers and sisters, in this khutbah, I want to share with you a story that we all heard or read from the Quran. And that is from the story of our dear Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. But before I proceed to the stories, I don't want to tell you the story, but I want to tell you something that is beyond the story. Why? Because that is the point from the Quran. Allah stated in the Quran that when we tell you a story in the Quran, the purpose is not just to listen to the Quran or the story and be amazed or be happy about it and that's it. No. Quran says the purpose of telling the story is to learn something, to take a message. That is the purpose of the story. Otherwise, what is the point of the story? If I'm happy about it or sad about it, and the end, and then what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, when we tell the story, we want you to take a lesson. And that is why Allah said it in one of the surahs, He said, إِنَّ لَفِي قَصَصِهِمْ لَعِبْرَةً. In the stories we give, there is lessons. So you take a lesson from that story. For that matter, I just want us to take some lesson from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. But the first thing that we want to learn from this story is that this surah of Yusuf is not like any other surahs in many aspects. Number one, in the Quran, there is no place Allah ever spoke about the life of any prophet, including our prophet. No place where Allah ever tells a story about a prophet from the beginning of his life till the end of his life, except Yusuf alayhi salam. Nowhere in the Quran. Even our prophet. The Quran was revealed upon him. It's his miracle. But Allah also gave a surah in his name, Surah Muhammad. But there is no story about his life, how he was born, how he started his life, how he's... There is no such thing. Another surah about Prophet Isa alayhi salam, Quran talks about how he was born. But there is no such surah where Quran talks about beginning of his life and the end of his life, except Yusuf alayhi salam. He is the only prophet that in one surah, Allah gives you the entire story of his life. How did he start? How did he end? What happened? From the beginning to the end. And all in one surah. And that is one of the uniqueness of this surah Yusuf. That is number one. Number two, this surah Yusuf, it has amazing things. Number one, it starts with something we call a dream. Dream. The whole story of Yusuf alayhi salam in the Quran, it started with the dream that he saw. And Quran says, "As qala Yusuf li abi ya abati inni ra'aytu ahada ashara." The whole story started with the dream. And you know what that means? The lesson that I want us to take from this is that means that every human being's life has to start with a dream. Meaning, I have to start my life with having a dream. This is what I want to be. This is what I intended to be in the future. You have to have a goal in life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he created us, he had a goal for us. And the goal is to be a true servant of him. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا. The goal, the purpose of creation is to be a good servant of Allah. That's the goal. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to tell us that every one of us, you have to have a goal in life. You have to have an aim. This is where I am, and this is my aim. This is where I want to be. And then strive and work towards that dream. And that is what the story of Yusuf alayhi salam is about. It started with the dream, and that dream came true. Where Yusuf in the same surah says, هَذَا تَأْوِيلُ رُؤْيَايَ. He was telling his father, say, my father, the whole thing that you see today is about the dream that started in the beginning. That is another lesson we have to learn, that life is supposed to start with the dream. However, in Islam, there are two kinds of dream. There is one is called, in Arabic, al-ru'ya, and there is another one is called al-hilm. Al-hilm or hulm. Al-hilm is different than ru'ya. Al-hilm is to see a dream that has no meaning. And it comes mostly from shaitan. When we go to sleep and we don't have wudu, or we didn't make some du'as, like Surah Al-Ayat al-Kursi or Al-Ta'weed, then the shaitan comes in our dream to influence our dream. And that's why we see certain things sometimes. And sometimes you see a good dream and it's from Allah. And it's one of the way Allah speaks to some of his servants. Dream is important in Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses it to tell us certain things. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he uses the dream to tell Ibrahim about slaughtering his son. That he saw the dream about his slaughtering his son. Allah sending the message. Like you and I, when we get text message, somebody texts you, Allah sometimes when he texts you a message, it's through a dream. You're sleeping, Allah texts you a message. He wants you to see something through your dream. The same thing applied to him. Our dear Prophet also. He saw a dream where Allah told him, you will enter Mecca and you will conquer, and you take the Kaaba in your hand back as it was before. Ya Rasulullah. And it happened too. And all this was told by the Prophet through the dream. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet Yusuf that we want to show you the miracle that through the dream. That the narration said, Yusuf alayhi salam, One night he went to bed as usual. And suddenly he saw the dream. And the question is here, brothers and sisters. What night was it when he saw this dream? Was it any other night? Like any other day? Or that night that he saw the dream was a special night that cannot be compared with any other night? When you go to the tafsir, they say, no, the night that Prophet Yusuf saw the dream is not like any other night. It was a special night. Question, what night was that? They said, the night he saw the dream was the night that was equivalent to Laylat al-Qadr. That night was the night of Prophet Yusuf. How old was he when he saw the dream? Here, there are three narrations. Some scholars say he was 7 years old. Some narrators say he was 9. Some say he was 12. But in any case, he was not even a teenager at that time. When he went to the sleep and he saw the dream, what did he see? Quran stated, إِنِّي رَأَيْتُ أَحَدَ عَشَرَ كَوْكَبًا. I saw 11 stars. وَالشَّمْسِ, I saw the sun. وَالْقَمَرِ, and the moon. رَأَيْتُهُمْ لِي سَاجِدِينَ. I saw all of them. They were in prostration for me. Allahu Akbar. Then what happened? Yusuf alayhi salam, when he saw the dream, he immediately went to his father, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam. Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, he was there when his son came to him and he told him the story, what he saw in the dream. The father Yaqub alayhi salam, he realized from that story, from what Yusuf alayhi salam told him, that this is not a normal dream. This is a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what did he tell him? He said, Ya bunayya la taqsus ru'ya. Don't share this dream with your brothers, with your siblings. Why? Here one question, brother, before we go forward. We all know that within the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, the other siblings, they felt that Yusuf alayhi salam is being loved more than them. But the question is, in Islam, is it okay for a father who has 2 children or 3 or more to love one more than the others? I as a father or a mother, I have 2 children, 2, 4, 5, 6, whatever the number is, but I love one more than the others. I love 2 more than the other. Is it practical in Islam? Is it accepted in Islam or no? If it's yes, we said it's not just. If it's no, why did Yaqub alayhi salam did that? The answer is, in Islam, we are not allowed. It's not allowed in Islam to favor one child over the other unless there is a good reason. Good reason allows that in Islam. What is a good reason? For example, let's say one child is more obedient than the other child. Yes, I'm allowed to do that. To love him more. To give him more care than the others. Example, we and Allah. Why did Allah love Muhammad more than us? Because he's more obedient to Allah than us. Why does Allah love Ahlul Bayt, certain people, more than us? We're all His servant. He created all of us equally. We're all humans. We're all His servant. Why does He love Prophet Muhammad more than the other prophet? Why does He love other prophet more than us? Even though we're all His servant. Because they are more obedient to Him than us. So if a child is more obedient to the father or to Allah, then the father has a right to love him more than the others. That is allowed in Islam. But what I cannot do is to say, I love this child more than this child because this child is cute than this one. That is not a good reason. You know what? Let me tell you the bottom line. The bottom line is, you can prefer one child over another child because of certain qualities the one child has over the other. Because it's something they both can acquire. But if something is beyond their capacity, you cannot prefer somebody over that. Because beauty is not their choice. Or I prefer this child because he's taller than the other. No, that's not a good reason. Here, we are not allowed to do that. But if in Islam I have a good reason, Islam says you're allowed to do that. The same thing applies to Yusuf alayhi salam. His father is in favor because he was more obedient to Allah and his father more than the other children. And that is why Yusuf alayhi salam had this more love than his children, than the other children. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about Yusuf alayhi salam, that when he saw the dream, he told his father. The father told him, La taqsus ru'yak, my son, do not share your story with your brothers. Why? That's the first question we have to ask. He says, brothers. The other lesson our Mufassirin, they mentioned, brothers and sisters, is that, and this is from the lesson from the Yusuf story. And that is, sometimes your blood relatives can be your worst enemies. And your people you are not even related to them, they become your loved ones and your closest people to you. Allah. And that is one of the lessons from the Yusuf alayhi salam. Now look at the whole story. Now who were the one who took Yusuf alayhi salam and threw him in the well? His own siblings. Now come to see, who were the one who rescued him from the well? They were innocent people who he doesn't even relate to them. They don't even know them. But they came and they rescued Yusuf alayhi salam from the well. And that is one of the lessons that the Quran tells us. That sometimes your relatives can be your worst enemies, as in the case of Yusuf alayhi salam. And Yusuf alayhi salam, brothers, another important lesson is to always keep in mind, brothers. And that is, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose somebody with something, no matter how much I try to pull the person down, it's not going to happen. Just keep this in mind. That's one of the lessons from the Surah of Yusuf. That Yusuf alayhi salam, he was chosen by Allah, but his siblings, they wanted to put him down in enemies necessary. But what happened? It didn't happen. They put him into the lowest level you can never even imagine, which is, they even led Yusuf to become a slave. Is there any worse situation, any worse level can one be in than to be a slave to somebody else? No. But what happened? From being slave, Allah worked his way through to become the king of the same city where he was taken as a slave. Now you tell me, who can do this other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Change somebody's position. He was slave, which is nothing. He was looked down upon, but then he worked his way through to become the king of the same city. Not that he migrated to other city where he was not known, then he became known. In the same city where he was taken as a slave. But Allah worked his way through Yusuf alayhi salam the way that he wants, to the point where Yusuf alayhi salam, he was the slave, but now he became a king later. That's one of the message of these stories of Yusuf alayhi salam, to keep in mind that if Allah raises someone, nobody can put them down no matter how much they try. And that is another lesson from Yusuf alayhi salam. Another one, brothers and sisters, there are so many lessons to learn from these 2-3 ayahs of Surah Yusuf. The other lesson from the Yusuf alayhi salam, according to the Quran, is that Yusuf alayhi salam, all this life that he went through, he had ups and downs in his life. And the last side was down. That his own brothers, they were putting him down, they didn't like him, they sold him, they threw him in the world. But that did not take Yusuf out of the path of Allah. And the reason why I mention this, unfortunately sometimes among us, some difficulties takes us out of the right path. Some of us, because of difficulty, sometimes financial difficulty. My job is not working the way I want. Sometimes my family is not going the way I want. Instead of that making me to stick on the right path and keep my relationship with Allah stronger, then shaitan takes us away from the path. And you hear us making some bad comments. And you hear some of us, they say, why should I even pray? Allah is not listening to me. Sometimes we try to become kafir because of these ups and downs. It's a normal thing in life that life has never been smooth to anybody. in this world. Every human being has ups and downs. Look in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ. It's a matter of test. There is always going to be ups and downs. But if you stick on the path of Allah and you keep praying and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will change your life to the better that you're asking for. But don't let that up, that down, take you out of the right way that you are in. And that is one of the lessons from Yusuf alayhi salam. No matter what happened, even the story tells us, Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was thrown in the well, he was sitting there. Jibreel came to him. He said to him, Ya Yusuf, would you like me to help you out of this? He said, no. What do you mean? You're sitting in this place? You need help? He said, no, I don't. Then Jibreel left. He came back. He said, Ya Yusuf, do you have anything you want to share with me? I said, yes, I do. What do you have? He said, I have a communication with my Lord, Allah, which is called dua. I have something to say to Allah. What is it? Then he read the dua. If you want to see that dua, you look in the Fatih al-Jinan. In the A'mal of Fajr, it's mentioned that dua there, that Yusuf alayhi salam read that dua, which he was asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be in his to save him and help him. And that is the narration stated after he read that dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Jibreel. See, the first time Jibreel came, he came by our option, his own will. But the second time Allah told him, you go and rescue and save my servant Yusuf alayhi salam. He was in there, Jibreel came, and he was protecting him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the caravan to come and help Yusuf alayhi salam. The point is, brothers and sisters, in any difficulty we find ourselves in, we should still keep the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should not. That is another one. The last one that I would like to add also, brothers and sisters, in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, which is, to me, is one of the big lessons of Yusuf alayhi salam in this story, is that Yusuf alayhi salam, despite the fact the whole thing that he went through, Yusuf alayhi salam, in every difficulty that he was going through, he was there to help others in any means that he could. Allah. In everything that he was in. Now look, one of the examples, when he was in there in the prison, people kept coming to Yusuf alayhi salam. We want this, we want that, we want this, we want that. And he was there to help them, including his enemies. The king. When he was in the prison, who put him in the prison? The king. And the king came to him, he says, I had a dream. I saw a dream that there are 7 cows. And he was asking Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam. Even though he was the enemy, he was the one who put him in the jail. But Yusuf alayhi salam was there to help and support him. Never. And that is one of the greatness. Brothers and sisters, helping people is one of the great messages of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to practice these messages of Yusuf alayhi salam. Ya Allah, we ask you every single day, help us to come closer and closer to you, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Ya Allah, we ask you, as we grow every day in age, let us grow also spiritually closer to you, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Ya Allah, let us see what is right and do what is the right thing, Ya Rabbal Alameen. And let us see what is wrong and help us to stay away from it, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Ya Allah, don't take our lives unless we are on your path, Ya Rabbal Alameen. And Ya Allah, we ask you when our time comes to leave this world, let it be the best time of our lives, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal-Asr inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilu s-salihat wa tawasaw bil-haqq wa tawasaw bis-sabr. Sadaqallahu al-'aliyyul 'azim.
ربنا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة على المصطفى وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. My dear brothers and sisters, this week there are some events that are very important to bring to our attention. One of the events of this week, as you know, is known as Eid-ul-Ghadir. The other one is also known as Eid-ul-Mubahala. When we see the word the Eid, most of the time the only thing that comes in our mind is two Eid, which is Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. That's all we know. We come to the masjid, we pray, and then we celebrate this Eid to Eid. But in Islam, there is more than these Eid, brothers and sisters. Even though those other Eids, it doesn't require to come to the masjid and do the salat as we perform Salat al-Eid. But they are called Eid because in Islam, when you see the word the Eid, from the word the Ada Ya'udu. Ada means return, and it returns. Anything that returns, whether it's weekly or monthly or yearly, is called Eid. That is why even Jum'ah is called Eid al-Usbu', Eid of the week, because it repeats weekly. So it's called Eid too. So in Islam we have certain Eids that we need to know. One of them is called Eid al-Mubahala. And Eid al-Mubahala is an event that took place at the time of our dear Prophet. And the ayah is mentioned in Surah Al-Imran. فَمَنْ حَاجَّكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ. When the Prophet ﷺ was sitting, and a group of Christians came to the Prophet, and they said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, there is a whole story, but I just want to give you just the summary of it, so that we know about these important occasions in Islam, which unfortunately we don't talk about. But it's a big important incident that happened in our Islamic history. That the Prophet was sitting in the masjid, where these Christians, they chose the wise and the most educated one of them. And there are 40 of them. They came to debate the Prophet and prove him wrong. Which means to prove Christianity is the right. When they came, the Prophet was in the masjid. They came with their drums, nice clothes, mashallah, shining, tail, jewelries. When they came, they walked into the masjid. Some companions were so sad. They wanted to start fight. Why are you coming to the masjid with drums, walking, singing? Our dear Prophet said to those companions, please let me deal with this. Let them in. Allahu Akbar. And that is one of the messages, brothers and sisters, that our religion is not a religion of violence. Our religion is the religion of understanding and accommodating every other religion. And that is the lesson from our dear Prophet. That the Prophet told them, come in. Not only come in, he told Imam Ali, give them the best spot in the masjid for them to be comfortable. Allahu Akbar. They were given a place. The Prophet finished the prayers. He went to them. They say, Ya Muhammad, we came to talk to you. However, we want to go outside and pray and then come back and talk to you. The Prophet said to them, you say you're going out to do what? To pray. He said, what is this place for? You want to pray to God? This place is meant for God too. Pray here. Allah. They prayed. After they finished their prayers, they sat with the Prophet. They said to the Prophet Muhammad, we want to ask you a question. So go ahead. What is your question? They said, what is your take about Isa, Jesus? What do you say about him? Our Prophet says, he is my brother. He is a messenger. This is that. Messenger? Why do you guys say he is a messenger? The Prophet said, why not? He says, messenger as I am. As a matter of fact, he was the one who told people before me about me coming. They said, no, that is where we say, you, Muhammad, you are putting Isa down and lower than his position. He said, why? They said, because we believe in him as a son of God. Son of God. That's what it is. Then the Prophet Muhammad said to them, what is your proof that he's a son of God? Tell me the proof. And that is what Islam is about. Islam is not about sword, killing. No, it's logic. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah. The Prophet said, tell me the proof. What is your proof? What is your reasoning? They said, our reasoning is this. Listen. The Prophet was listening to them. They said, you look throughout the history, from the day Allah created Adam, up to date as we speak, have you ever seen someone who has been born from a mother without a father? Is there anybody? Have you ever seen in the history that he or she has a mother but doesn't have a father? Prophet Muhammad said, no, there is nobody except Isa. He said, okay. If he doesn't have a father, but he has a mother, automatically what tells you? It tells us that his father is Allah. So he's son of God. Now look at how the logic works in the Islamic system. The Prophet says, okay, that's your logic, right? Okay, allow me to give my logic too. So that we see which logic it makes more sense. They say, if just because he doesn't have a father makes him to be a son of God and makes him to be the highest and the superior one over everyone, then what do you say about somebody who doesn't have both? Adam alayhi salam, he has no father and no mother. So if that makes him super, he's like super because he doesn't have a one side, then there is somebody who has both. So what do you say about him? Allah Akbar. This is called a knockout in the system of logic. And that is where they stop. They couldn't answer anything. That is when the Quran said to the Prophet, فَمَنْ حَاجَّكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ فَقُلْ تَعَالَوْا. Tell them, after all this logic, if they dispute, tell them to come. And tell them to invite 3 groups of people. Number 1, Abna'ana, let them invite their children. And you, Muhammad, bring your children too. What? And then let them bring their women, and you bring your women. And bring yourselves, and let them bring themselves. And do what we call mubahala. Curse each other. May I ask Allah to send the punishment on any one of these 2 groups who happen to be the liar. And they did. And the Prophet put a date and the time. But guess what? Fortunately, their leader called Askov, he said to the people, his followers, he said tomorrow, because they set up a date and the time, which the date was after the Fajr, at the time of Duha, before the sunrise, was the time that the Prophet told them to come for the asking Allah to punish the liar between the 2 of them. So the group leader, Askov, he told them, his followers, he said, tomorrow if we come out and Muhammad come with anybody who doesn't relate to him by blood, he said, go ahead and do the curse. And I'm sure we're going to win it. But if he comes and he came with his dearest family, his blood-related people, he said, don't do the curse. And surely, the next day the Prophet came out, and he was carrying his dearest grandsons, Al-Hassan and Hussein. One of them was on his chest, which is Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The Hassan was on his right side. Fatima, his daughter, was behind him. And his son-in-law, Ali, was behind Zahra alayhi salam. And they were walking towards the place. The leader of this group, the Christians, when he looked at those faces, he asked them, he said, who are those Muhammad is coming with? They said, you see the one who's carrying on his chest? That is his grandson. The one on the right side is another grandson. The one behind him is his own daughter. The other one behind him is also his son-in-law. Allahu Akbar. And then he said to him, listen carefully. Ya Ma'shar al-Najran, the leader, he said to them, he said, Inni la'ara wujuhan. And this is his own words. He said, when I look at these 5 faces, 5, Prophet Muhammad, Hassan and Hussein and Fatima and Ali, he said, these 5 faces that I look upon, or I look on their faces, he said, I saw these faces, if they are to ask Allah to move a mountain from one place to another, Allah would have done it. Fala tuba, don't do the curse. What happened? They backed off. And you know what? That was the one of the biggest incident also in Islam that drove people to Islam. The narration said even the Christians who came to debate the Prophet, when they saw this miracle, that was the turning point for them. Then later on, they all came back to the Prophet and surrendered and became Muslims. And this was what? Was the victory of logic in Islam. It's not about sword. It's not about bloodshed. It's just the logic would work, and it was able to turn so many people to Islam. And this is one of the events that we don't talk about, brothers and sisters. And these are the days of Eid al-Mubarak. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to understand our history and Islamic event as we're supposed to, Ya Rabbal Alameen. And Ya Allah, help us to follow this event as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Brothers and sisters who are sick, Ya Allah, give them the fastest recovery, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Our mu'mineen and mu'minat who are going through difficulty, Ya Allah, make it easier for all of them, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, fasalli li rabbika wanhar. Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.